Are you a beginner in fashion designing and probably you've been moving from one page to another without still finding the answers to your questions, and what you're looking for is nowhere to be found? This is the page you want to be on, and this is Blazer Stitches, where we deal with everything DIYs, fashion designing, and lifestyle. So today we're going to be starting off by making this beautiful cold shoulder dress that you're going to find somewhere around the corners of this video, and it's actually beginners friendly. We're going to start off with drafting the pattern and also moving over to cutting it on fabric and possibly incorporating the sewing video to this particular tutorial if time permits us. If you're a new subscriber, you're welcome to our family. We love you so much. And to the returning subscribers, thank you so much for your constant support, and you're the reason why we keep doing what we're doing. So without no further ado, let's get right into the video. Starting off with the pattern drafting, you're going to need your basic tools, which is your tape rule, your scissors, your pair of pencil. You'll need your rulers, and possibly if you're drafting directly on your fabric, which is what I'm not advising you to, you would need your fabric chalk, your marker, and every other thing. And then most importantly, your measurement. So the measurement I'm going to be using for this particular project would be displayed on the screen. Ensure you're using your own body measurement. If you do not have an aligning body measurement as I do, avoid making use of my measurement, except you just want to make clothes that has my sizing. Okay, so I'm trying to clear off my pattern paper so we can begin our basic bodies drafting. As you all know, every pattern, every project starts or begins with your basic bodies. Okay, and we've treated that already on the channel. You can go check it out. So what I did was to mark my shoulder line, which is also my starting point line, and then I divided my shoulder by 2 and marked it, and also started taking my vertical measurement, which was my bust point first, and then I marked my waist point. I went ahead to mark my hip point and as well as the full length. Okay, so once you're done marking your vertical point, you just want to ensure that everything aligns. So I went ahead to mark those measurements again, taking those points again, my bust point, my waist point, my hip point, and the full length. When I was done doing that, I connected those points with an horizontal line. So you want to ensure that your lines are straight enough and they also align with each other. Okay, so every point has to align with each other. So that's what I was doing here. I'm connecting those points together. So connect your bust point, your waist point, your hip point, and your full length point with an horizontal line. Another thing I want to point out here is that the sleeve of this project or this dress is going to be in a separate video. Apparently, I might want to attach the video to the sewing video. I don't know if that's going to work, but if I cannot do it at the end of the day, I will have to create the sleeve pattern of this dress separately in another video that might likely be a part 2 or a part 3. So this is going to be the part 1 of this particular video. So after drawing or connecting my horizontal lines, I went ahead to label the point. That's the chest line, the bust point, the waist line, the hip line, and the full length. Now, I'm sorry my camera skipped or did not capture the top part of this pattern paper rather. So what I did here was to go ahead and mark my armhole point, which on this particular project I'm making use of 8 inches when I am done sloping my shoulder. So you know the way you take your shoulder measurement divided by 2 and then you slope your shoulder by 1 inch or 0.5 inch. Okay, so that's what I did here. I went ahead to take my shoulder measurement divided by 2, came down at that point by 1 inch for my shoulder slope, and then measured my armhole point at from that shoulder slope point, which was 8 inches. Okay, so now trying to get my neck width and my neck depth. For this project, I made use of a 3.5 neck width and a 3 inches neck depth. So I connected my neck curve and also connected my shoulder slope point. Came down by 8 inches, like as you can see, and then drew it out, and that automatically became my chest line measurement. So I'm connecting my chest line to my shoulder slope to be able to get my armhole curve line. So now I'm trying to ensure that everything sits together. Remember that spot is supposed to be a perfect square. So I'm taking the point from my folded end of the pattern to ensure that I have the exact same measurement as I do on my shoulder point divided by 2. So I came in here by 0.5 inches for my armhole shaping for the curve. Okay, went ahead to mark my bust measurement divided by 4, and this is me at this point taking out my horizontal measurement on the pattern. So I'm marking my bust measurement divided by 4 to get my armhole curve. So that's what you want to do first. Mark your circumference divided by 4, whatsoever you have on your bust point. You can choose to duplicate it, but at this point I marked, yes, I marked on my chest line, and I also marked on my bust point line. Went ahead to connect my curve from the shoulder slope to the 0.5 inches that I extended inward, and then from my bust divided by 4 to the 0.5 to get my armhole curve. And then I went ahead to my waist point. I divided my waist circumference by 4, and I had my waist measurement by quarter. Okay, the quarter of my waist measurement. So at this point, I came back to my shoulder point, or I mean, rather, I came back to my chest line to add the basic allowance that I would need on this dress, because I would not have the time to go back again to put the allowance separately. So I just added 1 inch for my sewing allowance and 1.5 inches for my ease allowance. Remember, this is a free dress, it doesn't have a zipper. I came down to my bust point. I did the same thing, marked my bust circumference divided by 4, added 1 inch for my seam allowance, and then 1.5 for ease allowance. I did the same thing to my waist point, waist divided by 4 plus 1 inch sewing allowance and 1 inch 1.5 inch ease allowance. I did the same thing pretty much to my waist point, and then connected my points together. Now, why you're going to wonder why I didn't take it also to the full length. Just follow carefully, and then you will understand why I had to stop at my waist point before connecting the points together. So, when you are done taking from your hip point to your waist point upward, you're just going to take the measurement that you have on your hip point. Anything you register there is the same thing you're going to mark on your full length. For my own, or for mine, I had 14 inches as the total measurement on my hip point. So I took that same measurement to my full length point and then registered it and connected from my hip point to my full length. And that is what gave me my full bodice for this particular project. So I wanted to make something clear for beginners in the house. At this point, the whole seam ease that you need is already on the pattern, so you don't have to do extra. Okay, you don't have to connect your points together and then still go ahead to add another allowance. Okay, if that is fine, then we can proceed. So I went ahead to connect my point, and you can see the way I'm placing my pattern master. So if you do not have a pattern master but you have a hip curve, you can still make use of it. Okay, they are essential tools. So at this point, we're just done with everything. Now, another thing I want you guys to understand is that there's this called shoulder dress, and they make use of one pattern. So now what they use for the front borders is exactly what they have on the back pattern, okay, or the back borders. Meaning, if they're using 3 by 3 as their neck width and neck depth for the front, that's exactly what they will have at the back. But for me, because I love my cold neck shoulder dress to always be like the actual usual dress, where my neckline would need to drop at the back because I have a fuller neckline, okay, and I need it to be covered. I just went ahead to mark my actual shoulder measurement for the back, which is 3.5 inches for the width and then 1 inch for the back depth. Okay, so the neckline for the back could be 1 by 3.5, or you can choose to use 3 by 3.5, just as the way you have it at the front, or 3 by 3. Whatever neck width and neck depth you have, you can decide to just stick with the actual regular neck width for the front and back, just separately or differently, and then the same thing if you choose to, okay, for back and front. So I went ahead to cut out my pattern, and you see what I just explained to you. I did my regular back neck measurement, which is 3.5 by 1 inch for the depth, and that's it. So at this point, this is the fabric I'm going to be working with. Definitely, it's a polka dot fabric, and I'm so much in love with polka dot. I don't know about any other person, but for me, I don't want to use the word obsessed, but I just love polka dot. Now I'm folding the fabric into two, and this is like 2.5 yard of this fabric, because I'm actually working for a plus size, like a size 12, size 14. So if you're on the petite size, you can make use of a 1.5 yard fabric, or 2 yards at most. Okay, because of the what is it called? Because of the flay on your cold shoulder. So you can decide to cut a 360 flay, or you could just decide to manage your fabric. So I'm introducing the pattern paper now on my fabric to be able to cut my back block before cutting it out to get my front block. So that's what I'm going to be doing here basically. Remember, it's a cold shoulder dress, so you just want to mark where the opening will stop. And for me, I'm making use of 4 inches because I don't want it to be too open and I don't want it to be too close. So you can make use of 5 inches, 7 inches, as wide as you want it to be. And it also depends on what you have on your armhole as your armhole length. Mine is 8 inches, so I just take 4 inches. The valve of the shoulder is going to be revealing, and then the remaining half is going to be closed. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm marking out the 4 inches, and I'm making a notch at that point, so it's going to be easy for me when I'm sewing. So to cut my front pattern for the front block, okay, so I'm just going to take off the pattern paper to get my front neck curve. Remember, I was working with a different back neck curve and also a different curve for the front. So if you made use of the same measurement for your front curve, neck curve, and your back neck curve, this point is actually not necessary. So I'm done trimming off the front neck curve. I'm going to bring in my fabric to be able to cut my front block or my front bodies. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to fold just the way you're seeing me. So what I did here was to just go ahead and mark the cold shoulder point, which is 4 inches, and then mark it and give it a notch. And then I'm going to introduce my back and my front block together to mark out where my string would be, where I'm going to place my string. And I just marked down 1 inch from my waist point. So when I tie the rope, it will not look very fake, but it's gonna give me that my waistline illusion very well defined. So that's what I was doing here. I placed the two blocks together and then mark out where my waist rope is going to be placed. Pay attention to what I'm doing here, so you can actually place it exactly where your waist point is. But I feel that sometimes doesn't work because maybe you took your measurement while you've not eaten, and you just want to be safe, okay, while you are drafting and when you're cutting. So I love working on heels, and sometimes it could take up the height. And if you have a wider stomach line, you just want to come down by 1 inch and then notch for the placement of your rope or your string. Okay, so I'm done with the bodies. I'm gonna go over to the sleeve, marking out of my sleeve. So like I said earlier, I'm going to do a separate tutorial on how to get the sleeve of this particular dress. So here I was just making use of my rough leftover fabric to cut out the string that I might necessarily be using here, and then the belt hook as well. So that's what I'm just trying to do here, managing my fabric so it can be enough for what I want to use it for. Now I'm going to be cutting the sleeve out. So folding the fabric into two. I tried folding it into four so I can cut out the sleeve at once. Boy, for no reason it wasn't just sitting well with me, because anytime I tried the pattern on, it kind of like went very small. It wasn't fitting in, so I got tired and I decided to just take it one at a time. So I gave up and I folded for the first sleeve and then went ahead to fold again for the second one. Just me trying to see if it can work out here. So this is where I decided to, cut it out one at a time. So here I was done cutting out the bust sleeve for the front and the back, or the left and the right. So I decided to do the exact same thing I did for my bodies. I marked out where the coat sleeve is going to start from. But before then, I'm going to take my full measurement for the coat sleeve point to be able to cut out my flea. Remember the style? It has a flay joint to the main sleeve, so that's where I was kind of like notching out so I won't be stressed when I'm joining it to each other, like when I'm attaching the sleeve and the flay to the main dress. So it will be easy for me to identify my coat sleeve starting and ending point. At this point, I'm just trying to cross check everything to make sure it sits nice and flat and the measurements are all equal, because you don't just want to cut out your flay and at the end of the day it's not giving you what you need. Now I'm done with the cutting of the main sleeve, so I want to go over to cut my flay. So I'm going to explain a little bit here, not minding the fact that I'm going to create a tutorial for how you can draft the sleeve of this coat shoulder dress. Here I'm trying to cut a three circle flay here. So after taking my measurement on my sleeve around the coat area, I had 20 inches as my circumference. Okay, so what I did here was to divide the 20 by 3.14, and it gave me 6.2 or 6.369, so approximately that's 6.4. So I just went over to mark 6.5, adding extra 1 point to the measurement so it's going to sit properly when I'm attaching it to my dress. So I got tired of my wig at this point. I had to just go take it off and put on my Ojomoju cap. Like you can see me rocking it here. So beautiful. And then I proceeded by, doing the exact same thing I did earlier, confirming the circumference measurement, making sure it aligns with my pattern, and then went ahead to take the circumference measurement, divided it by 3.14, and then came over to my fabric again to cross check my measurement, because earlier I made use of 5 inches and I discovered that it was 6.3, so I just corrected that immediately before cutting it out. I took the measurement round where I had my folded end to the double point of my fabric to be able to get a perfect curve, so I connected those points together to have my own sleeve opening curve. When I was done doing that, I needed the sleeve length or my flare length to be 5.5 inches. That's 4 inches for the actual length, and then 1 inch for the joining to the men's sleeve, and half of an inch for the hemming. But I realized that what I folded out and what I'm going to cut out at the end of the day, I might not be able to have up to that particular length that I want to work with. So I just manipulated it. Look closely, you're gonna see what I did here, the trick that I applied here to get my flake and the length that I desire, even when the fabric was not enough for me to make use of. Okay, if you look at my cotton after measuring the length of the flake, you're going to see one side of this flake looking bigger than the other side, and that is because the fabric was not enough. But I'm still going to find a way to like trim it and make everything looks almost equal. Okay, so now instead of marking it on the 6.4 inches mark that I had, I came up with half of an inch, and that's why, because I'm going to fold it at the end of the day, I'm going to be rolling the hem of the sleeve or the flake. Okay, so that's why I didn't cut it out exactly on the marking that I had. And also I had plans of reducing the length on the hem point, which is what I'm doing now, to ensure I have equal ends on the folded part of the flake. Okay, so I've achieved that almost, yeah, because I still had some point bulging out that was longer than the two ends. But my main focus was on the folded part and on the opening part, because I have to divide this flake into two so I can have it for the right and also the left sleeve. This is where we draw the cutting for the drafting and the cutting of this particular coat sleeve shoulder dress. Next is going to be the sewing video, and I will be uploading it on the channel. So if you are a returning subscriber, you know we always love to acknowledge you and give you your deserved shout out. Thank you for encouraging us to keep doing more. Thank you for being a part of our page. And if you are a new subscriber, I promise you, you're not going to regret subscribing to this channel. Do well to like, share, and subscribe. Share the love and good news to your friends and people who aspire to learn something and a skill in terms of fashion designing. And see you guys in the sewing video. Bye. Thank you.